In archery, there's two different slings that you can use on your bow, whether that be a finger sling or a wrist sling, and I'm going to cover in this video the pros and cons of each so you can make a better decision as to which one you would want to use. So this video comes by request from one of my patrons, actually through my Discord server. They specifically requested what are the pros and cons of each of a wrist sling versus a finger sling, and wanted to know if I can make a video explaining the differences between the two. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to cover the basics between the two different types, whether that be the wrist sling or the finger sling. Now there's two different variations here on what a wrist sling could be. This one I have tied directly into my bow. It's actually made out of an old bowstring, so if it looks familiar, don't be too surprised. And then the other version is one that actually loops around your wrist, goes around the bow, and hooks onto that same loop that's around your wrist. That's actually the sling that I grew up using. I started using it on my compound, actually, when I started shooting compound a long time ago. And then when I switched to recurve, I continued to use the wrist sling all the way up until I moved to the Olympic Training Center in 2006. And at that time period, I needed to switch to a finger sling, and I'll explain to you why that was. But first, let's cover the basics of the actual slings themselves and why you would want to use one. So the reason you would want to use an actual sling to help hold the bow or catch the bow more appropriately after you let go of it is so you're not inducing torque onto the bow by grabbing onto it. If you're a new archer, you may not even know that you shouldn't be grabbing onto your bow. You should be actually just kind of cradling the bow and letting the bow push against your hand. If you're not sure how to set your hand and your grip properly, I will have a link in the description below and a card at the top up there to a video specifically about how to put your hand into the bow in a very basic sense. So the whole principle and point of a sling itself is to catch the bow when you let it go, when you let go of the string, to catch the bow so you don't drop it, because the proper placement of your hand in the grip is not holding it, as I've already said. So you're just barely kind of resting your hand in the grip, and you're not holding on to the bow, and you're not supposed to catch the bow the moment you let go of it. If you do, you're inducing some sort of torque, some sort of movement, or some sort of outside force that is not ideal and not going to result in the best groups possible downrange. So a wrist sling just goes over the wrist. This one, like I said, I have tied into my bow, and I just slip my hand in through the actual loop and hold on to the grip. And like I said, just cradling the bow, I can't possibly drop it. It won't, no matter what I try to do, fall out of my hand. And so I can be rest assured that I'm not going to actually drop my bow. The other version of the actual wrist sling is the very same thing. It just loops around the bow and it stays attached to you instead of attached to the bow. And it's a little bit more comfortable and easy to get into, because this one, in order for it to be small enough so it still catches me, but big enough so I can still fit my hand into, still makes it a little bit difficult and a little bit cumbersome to get my hand out of and into, but it works just the same. So I'll shoot a shot or two here, and you'll be able to see how the bow reacts after I let go of it, and watch it jump from my hand into the sling. The sling does all the work of controlling and catching the bow, and my hand's not doing anything. And it's very minimal. You won't really see much going on because I'm not moving my hand post-release. I'm not grabbing onto the bow. I'm not gripping it. I'm not catching it. I'm just letting the bow sling do all the work. And it's really that simple. It's just there to catch the bow when I let it go, so that way I don't drop it. Now the other option is a finger sling. There's, again, various different variants on the actual finger sling themselves. There's ones that you can buy from the store, which I'll have links in the description below in case you're interested. Or there's one you can make out of a old shoelace or some sort of string, and that's what this is right here. I will also have a link in the description below and a card at the top up there to a video on how to make your own finger sling out of a shoelace if you're interested too. But basically it does the same exact thing, except it's attached to my fingers, and that's why it's called a finger sling. I'm just going to leave the wrist sling hanging there from the riser itself. But now you can see I loop it around the bow, attaching it between my index finger and thumb. Some will put it on their middle finger and thumb. Not really much of a difference. Sometimes it's just personal preference, and I happen to like it most on the index finger. Now you'll see it's doing the same exact thing, and it's catching the bow when I let it go. I can't possibly drop it. It's attached to me. And again, I can be rest assured I'm not going to drop it when I let go of the string. Now this one would be a little bit different, and I'm going to explain to you what the difference is between the two as far as what I feel. And overall, it's just very easy, very simple, and the mechanism is just a very basic tool to use that really will help make you a better archer, because again, you won't grab the bow and torque it. Now the reason I actually use a finger sling and why I switched to it when I went to the Olympic Training Center is because of a technique issue, a technique thing actually. So for the KSL shot cycle or the NTS system, I was told to do this kind of motion where you push the bow hand down and you actually do this motion through follow through where you kind of snap the wrist downwards. I don't necessarily do that with my bare bow, but if you pay attention to how the bow reacts and jumps out of my hand with this finger sling, you'll see the hand going from this more vertical flat position as if I'm in a push-up to this forward position where I'm almost throwing the bow out of my hand, or it's actually more appropriate in that the finger sling is pulling my hand from this position here to this position here. And you'll see that it's just jumping out of my hands, kind of pulling the bow out of my hand. With a Olympic style recurve, with stabilizers when the bow wants to rotate and roll forward, this is really important. The wrist sling will work for those that are not necessarily interested in the actual motion of the hand, something that's a little bit more convenient and less annoying because that's not in the way of your fingers when you're walking around. But overall, I find them to be much more comfortable to use for me because, again, I really like the reaction of the hand popping forward, the bow launching out of my hand towards the target, and when I can let the bow do this instead of pulling against my wrist itself, just like it does on the wrist sling, it's just more comfortable for me due to my habits and technique that I've developed over time. One thing that I have noticed, though, working with some archers that I have been coaching, is that the wrist sling sometimes can cause a bit of a stiffening of the hand when they go to let go, because as the bow jumps, it pulls against that wrist, right where the string is, and for whatever reason, it just sends the signal, like a motor program to the brain, to catch the bow like this, and then they end up stiffening the bow arm upon release, and they move and they jerk the moment they let go, not because they're actually trying to grab the bow, but because they're trying to, I guess, brace for that impact of the bow hitting the wrist sling against their wrist. I don't know what that is, and I've definitely seen some people having some stiffness, some soreness, and some issues in the actual body itself. So just something to pay attention to. And you may want to experiment with both. A finger sling, an old shoelace out of an old shoe that you're gonna throw out is free, and I've made a video for free on how to make one and use one, so you can try and test both if you want. Like I said, this was made from an old bowstring that I just tied together in a loop, threw it into a hole on my riser, and it works just fine. So you can almost do this for free if you have some basic materials laying around. Now, if you got value out of this video and you'd like to see more of these, please hit that subscription button and a thumbs up down below. Genuinely, that helps this channel out, and you'll get notified if you hit that notification bell when I upload new content. And if you're interested in becoming a better archer, I have lots of different resources in the links in the description below, including many countless videos on my YouTube channel. So be sure to search for my name as well as whatever topic you're looking for in regards to archery, and I probably have produced a video already for you to check out and to learn some more. Hey, if you like this video, consider sharing it. Genuinely, that helps this channel grow. I don't operate any other social media, and I rely on you to help spread the word about the channel. Also, please do consider supporting this channel. There's many different links in the description below. I produce all this content for archers around the world to enjoy for free, and I can't thank my supporters enough. Without you, I wouldn't be able to produce this content, at least not to this level. So thanks.